We're now going to look at a risk assessment for the budgies, and the scenario is that the budgie needs health checking. So there's a risk when removing the budgie from the cage and also then examining it. So the reason for the restraint is that the budgie needs health checking, so it needs securing while you check it. The main areas to be checked are the beak and the eyes. The beak can get overgrowth, so the beak can get too long, especially the top part of the beak can overgrow the bottom part of the beak. You can also get diseases of the eyes and diseases of the feet, especially if the lower part of the cage, the bottom part of the cage, has got feces on it and it's not been cleaned regularly, then that can get into the feet and encrust the bottoms of the feet and they can get diseased. So it needs regular checking as well, its fur as well, the condition of its fur, its feathers rather, the condition of its feathers need checking as well to make sure that its plumage is clean, it's cleaning itself and grooming properly, and there's no damage then to the feathers. So what's the risks? Well, the main risks to the handler are that it's got quite a sharp beak, so it can peck the handler, and it can give quite a nasty peck as well and draw blood. It's quite painful if it does that. It can also scratch with its feet. The risks to the bird are that you could break a wing. So the main way that you do it is you try and encourage the bird to go down onto the floor, and then you use the claw method to wrap your hand right around the top of the bird, with its head protruding then from the open end of your clawed hand around the top. You try and trap the two wings within the claw of your hand so that you don't break a wing, and you try and use the whole of your hand right down to the lower part of its tail, so you're wrapping the claw of your hand right from the neck right down to the tail, enclosing the two wings within the top of the claw. And then once secure, once you've got hold of it, you don't grip it too tightly, but obviously you grip it tightly enough so that it can't escape. Then you can turn it upside down and examine underneath. You can examine its feathers, and you can examine its feet, and you can also examine its beak and its eyes from that point. But the main risk, of course, is that it will bite you. The other risk, of course, is that you don't grab it properly. You're not able to put your claw around the top of the bird securely, and so you wait until you've got a real secure hold on top of the bird before then you bring it out of the cage. Otherwise it could escape into the room. The other risk, of course, is that it escapes through an open window or a door, so of course you close those before you remove it from the cage. The restraint required, so we've talked about the fact that you use a claw method. I've already covered that. I've talked about the fact that you try and enclose the wings and that you have the head protruding, and you try and wrap the whole of your hand right around the body to keep the wings enclosed right from top neck right down to the lower tail as well, so you can get a good hold on the bird. And in that way, if you've got a firm hold on the bird, then it's less likely to become stressed. What kind of PPE, personal protective equipment, do you need? Well, you're going to use fairly thick gloves for two reasons. One, so that if it does peck you, then you're not going to be harmed. And secondly, a thicker pair of gloves allows you to get a good grip onto the bird. Windows and doors firmly closed, maybe a net's available as well, so that if it does escape into the room, then you can catch it in that way. Overalls are good as well, because quite often if the bird does become stressed, it can produce feces, and if it's stressed as well, that can be quite loose. And so that prevents spread of disease onto your clothes then, if you've got an overall that can be wiped down or put into the wash. The purpose of the PPE, I think we mentioned already, is to prevent damage to the handler, also prevent spread of disease with the use of gloves again, and also use of overalls to prevent the spread of zoonotic diseases that can be spread from bird to handler. How should the PPE be used? So gloves on your hands, obviously, a fairly long apron as well, or overalls, to prevent the spread of any disease through feces. And sometimes as well you could wear eye protection as well. That's sometimes mentioned in some of the manuals for handling birds, in case it does flap and escape and that kind of thing, and it goes towards your eyes. But I don't think that's compulsory. When not to restrain the animal, handle the animal, So if it's pregnant, if it's ill, if it looks particularly aggressive in some way, then you probably wouldn't want to restrain or handle the animal. If it's looking like that, then you can probably use a visual method rather than a physical method of checking the animal. And if it doesn't really want to be restrained, then you'd advise that a veterinary surgeon look at that. How to ensure that the animal is safe. So we've already mentioned all of the control methods. So control measures when you're handling a bird to make sure it's really secure. And the main safety, of course, is that you don't break a wing. If you break a wing and they're not fully enclosed within the claw of your hand, then that will be potentially fatal to the bird. Animal disease prevention, use of gloves. Some people say latex gloves for animals are better than cloth gloves because they can be disposed of and so there's no spread of disease. But you can put a cloth pair of gloves into a hot wash anyway, and I think that gives a better, securer hold on the animal than a latex glove. And in the case of budgies that, as I say, can be quite aggressive, if they try to peck you, then a latex glove isn't going to give you the level of protection that a cloth glove would. So I'd recommend cloth gloves and put them through a hot wash, and of course the use of a long apron as well to prevent the spread of disease and bacteria through feces.